The night the storm hit Columbia, the air carried that heavy tension that always comes before chaos. Rain lashed against dorm windows, and thunder rolled through the city like a warning. Across campus, students huddled in their rooms or gathered in bars, watching the sky tear open. But somewhere near Green Street, Marcus Lee was still outside. He'd left the fraternity party just before midnight, his hoodie soaked, sneakers slapping against the wet pavement. People said they saw him arguing with someone. Nobody could agree on who. A few thought it was just a drunken misunderstanding, nothing serious. But later, when the streets emptied and the power flickered out, Marcus vanished into the storm. By morning, Columbia woke to broken branches, flooded sidewalks, and silence. His roommate, Evan Turner, noticed Marcus's bed untouched. His phone, wallet, and backpack were gone, but his laptop sat open, a paper half written on the screen. When Marcus didn't show up for class or basketball practice, worry turned into panic. Campus police started asking questions. Flyers went up across the horseshoe. Reporters circled the story like vultures, sensing something larger than a missing freshman. "It's not like him," Evan told them, rubbing his temples. "He wouldn't just disappear." Marcus was 18, bright, ambitious, the kind of kid who made friends easily but carried a quiet edge of insecurity. He'd only been at the University of South Carolina for 2 months, but he was already trying to find his place. Maybe that's what led him to that party on Green Street. Maybe that's where everything went wrong. As the investigation began, whispers spread through campus. Some said Marcus had run away. Others said he'd been involved in something dangerous. But no one could explain why his last known text to his friend Rachel Myers simply read, "Something's off. I'm heading out." The police combed through every inch of the riverbank, using boats and dogs and volunteers. Nothing. The current was too strong, the storm too fierce. Days turned to weeks and hope began to fade. Rachel refused to believe he was gone. She spent her evenings in the student newsroom, scanning weather maps, phone records, anything that might tell her where Marcus went. "People don't just vanish," she told Evan one night. "Someone saw something. Someone knows." Evan didn't answer. He stared out the window at the empty campus, the glow of streetlights reflecting on wet pavement. Then why won't anyone talk? The question hung between them like the humidity in the air, thick, suffocating, unrelenting. That was the beginning of it all. The night the rain swallowed Marcus Lee and Columbia, South Carolina, became a city haunted by silence. Before we uncover what really happened to Marcus that night, make sure you're subscribed, because this story doesn't end in the storm, it begins there. And in the coming chapters, you'll see how one disappearance turned a small college town into a community chasing ghosts. August 2008. The heat in Columbia clung to everything, thick and restless. The University of South Carolina campus shimmered under the southern sun, as freshmen carried boxes, fans, and the anxious hope of starting over. Marcus Lee stepped out of his parents' SUV and stared at the brick buildings rising around him, the kind of place that felt both intimidating and full of promise. His mother hugged him tightly. "You call every Sunday, okay?" she said, brushing imaginary dust from his t-shirt. His father, a quiet man with proud eyes, handed him a folded envelope. "For emergencies," he said. Marcus smiled, pretending he wasn't scared. Inside the dorm, fans hummed against the late summer heat. His new roommate, Evan Turner, was unpacking, pale, tall, born and raised in Greenville. "You Lee?" Evan asked, extending a hand. "Yeah," Marcus said, shaking it. "Guess we're stuck together." They laughed, and just like that, the first thread of friendship formed. The early days were a blur of introductions, orientations, and late-night pizza runs. Marcus explored the horseshoe, wandered through 5 Points, and sat by the Congaree River whenever homesickness hit. He loved how alive the campus felt, music spilling from windows, football fans chanting "Go Gamecocks" even in August. One evening at the student union, Marcus met Rachel Myers. She was a journalism major with sharp eyes and a voice that carried conviction. "You're the guy from Georgia, right?" she asked, scribbling notes for an article. "Atlanta," he said. "Trying to survive college without getting lost. Rachel smiled. Then you picked the wrong campus. They clicked fast. Study sessions at the library, coffee at Cool Beans, long talks about everything from music to ambition. Marcus told her he wanted to study architecture, build something lasting. She teased him for always sketching buildings on napkins. But beneath his easy charm, Marcus carried an undercurrent of doubt. Back home, expectations were heavy. His parents had worked hard for him to be here. He couldn't afford to fail. Yet, surrounded by kids with family legacies and effortless confidence, he sometimes felt like an outsider. Evan noticed. "You're thinking too hard, man," he said one night. "Nobody here's got it all figured out," Marcus laughed. "Feels like everyone but me." By mid-semester, things began to shift. Marcus joined an intramural basketball team and quickly became one of the best players. He earned nods from coaches and invitations to social circles he hadn't imagined joining. Among them was Tyler Briggs, a junior from an old Columbia family, known for his charm and arrogance. Tyler saw potential in Marcus, but there was something behind his friendly grin, a weight that Marcus couldn't quite name. Still, things looked up. His grades were solid, his friends close, his future bright. On quiet nights, he'd sit under the magnolia trees near the horseshoe, thinking about how far he'd come and how much further he wanted to go. He had no idea how quickly that peace would fade. By October, the air in Columbia had cooled, but life on campus was heating up. Classes were harder, nights were longer, and friendships had begun to solidify into something real. Marcus had found a rhythm, a balance between study sessions, basketball practice, and hanging out with Evan and Rachel. Yet beneath the normal flow of college life, quiet tensions were forming. Marcus had joined an intramural basketball team through the campus rec center. It was supposed to be just for fun, but competition ran deep. That's where he got closer to Tyler Briggs. Tyler was everything Marcus wasn't: older, confident, born into money. He carried himself like the university was built for him. "You've got game, Lee," Tyler said after practice one night, tossing Marcus a towel. "You should come to the house this weekend. Meet some real players." Marcus hesitated. "The fraternity thing, I don't know if that's my scene." Tyler grinned. "It's everyone's scene if you play it right." Evan didn't like it. "Be careful with those guys," he warned. "They've got influence and egos to match." Marcus shrugged it off, but the warning lingered. Between practices and classes, Marcus kept pushing himself. He wanted to prove he belonged. At the architecture lab, he spent long hours sketching, determined to perfect every line. Professor Carr noticed. "You've got a good eye," she said. "Just don't burn out before finals." Rachel often met him at the student cafe afterward. "You're killing yourself," she said one afternoon, watching him stare at his laptop. "You can breathe, you know." Marcus smiled faintly. "Can't. Not yet. Not until I make it worth it." Despite the late nights, his world felt stable. Until the game started getting rough. During one scrimmage, Tyler shoved him hard during a rebound, then smirked. "Watch yourself, freshman." Marcus didn't respond, but the crowd noticed. It wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about pride. A few days later, Tyler caught up with him outside the gym. "Don't take it personal," he said casually. "I like seeing what you're made of." Marcus replied, "I'm here to play, not prove something to you." Tyler's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You just did." Rachel picked up on the tension immediately. "He's testing you," she said. "Guys like Tyler don't like being challenged." Marcus brushed it off. "I'm not trying to challenge anyone." "You already did," she said quietly. The rest of the semester rolled forward, but the distance between Marcus and Tyler widened. Evan noticed Marcus withdrawing a little, spending more time alone, showing up late to meals, staring off during conversations. "You good?" Evan asked one night. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, just tired." But deep down he knew it wasn't just exhaustion. Something about Tyler's attention unsettled him, an unspoken rivalry wrapped in false friendship. Still, Marcus kept showing up, determined not to be intimidated. He didn't know it yet, but that tension was only the beginning. By late October, Columbia's nights had turned sharp and restless. The leaves along Green Street were beginning to fall, swirling through the humid air as the faint sounds of music drifted from Fraternity Row. It was homecoming week, the kind of weekend where everything on campus pulsed with energy and secrets. Marcus had been invited to Tyler Briggs's fraternity party, one of the biggest of the semester. The invite came casually after practice, Tyler clapping him on the back. "You should come by Saturday night," he said. "It'll be a good time. You've earned it." Evan wasn't convinced. "That crowd doesn't care about you, man," he said when Marcus told him. "They'll act like your friend until they need someone to blame." Marcus sighed. "I can handle a party, Evan." "It's not that deep," Rachel agreed with Evan. "Tyler's trouble," she said over coffee at Cool Beans. "I've seen his name pop up in campus stories more than once. Nothing good." Marcus smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "Guess I'll be your inside source then." But deep down he wasn't as calm as he sounded. Something about the invitation felt like a test. Saturday came humid and tense with a sky that hinted at rain. Music pounded from the house as Marcus approached, his heart thudding in rhythm. Inside, the rooms glowed with string lights and laughter, red cups lining every surface. Tyler spotted him immediately and waved him over. "Lee, you made it," Marcus nodded, forcing a grin. "Wouldn't miss it." The night blurred in a mix of conversations, music, and uneasy laughter. A few people were friendly, curious about him. Others gave polite smiles and turned away. Tyler stayed close, introducing him around, always with that grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. At one point, Marcus stepped outside for air. The humidity clung to him as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. He leaned against the porch railing, watching people stumble down the street toward 5 Points. The laughter, the shouting, it all felt distant, like a world he wasn't really part of. Rachel's words replayed in his mind. "He's trouble." When Marcus turned to go back inside, he caught sight of Tyler near the doorway talking with 2 other guys. They stopped when they saw Marcus looking. Tyler raised his cup and smiled like nothing was wrong, but Marcus felt the weight of their stares. Evan texted him a few minutes later. "You good?" Marcus typed back. "Yeah, just loud in here." Then, after a pause, he added, "Something feels off, though." It started to rain, light at first, then harder. People cheered as thunder cracked overhead. Tyler called out, "Storm's rolling in." "Guess Columbia's getting wild tonight." Everyone laughed, everyone except Marcus. He stepped onto the sidewalk, hoodie pulled tight, the rain soaking through in seconds. He looked back once at the house glowing behind him, then started walking toward Green Street. He didn't know it yet, but someone was watching him leave. The storm hit harder than anyone expected. By midnight, the streets around Green Street were half flooded, thunder cracking like distant explosions. Power lines flickered, and the faint hum of sirens echoed through Columbia. Most students had already taken shelter, but Marcus was still out there, somewhere between the fraternity house and the river. Inside the house, the party had begun to collapse under the weight of the weather. People were leaving in pairs, laughter slurred and fading into the rain. Tyler stood on the porch watching as Marcus stepped out into the darkness. "You sure you're good, man?" he called out. Marcus didn't answer at first. The wind tore his words apart. "Yeah," he finally said, pulling his hood up. "I just need some air." "Air?" Tyler smirked. "There's plenty of that out here." Marcus ignored him and walked down the steps, his sneakers splashing in the growing puddles. The sound of music bled faintly from the house behind him, then vanished. He took the long route toward the dorms, following the curve of Green Street past the closed coffee shops and darkened buildings. Streetlights buzzed overhead, casting fractured reflections across the wet pavement. Every now and then, lightning lit up the city like daylight, revealing the outlines of parked cars, trees bending in the wind, and his own shadow stretching far ahead. His phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. "You okay? Heard the storm's bad near campus." Marcus typed back, "I'm fine, just leaving the party." Something's off, though. He didn't know why he wrote it, but it felt true. There had been something strange in the air that night, not just the weather, but the way people looked at him, the forced smiles, the conversations that stopped when he entered the room. It all sat heavy in his chest. Another flash of lightning. This time he thought he saw movement behind him, just a blur at the edge of the light. He turned, scanning the empty street. Nothing. Only rain. He started walking faster, shoes slipping slightly on the slick concrete. The wind howled down the street, carrying leaves and fragments of paper. His phone buzzed again, another message, this time from Evan. "You coming back soon? Roads are flooding." Marcus didn't respond. He was already cutting through a side path toward the bridge, where he could cross faster to the dorms. The air smelled of river water and ozone. The thunder grew distant, deeper, almost hollow. He glanced once more over his shoulder. Someone was there, a silhouette unmoving, half hidden by rain. Marcus's breath caught, and for a second he thought it was Tyler. But the next lightning flash showed nothing. Empty space. He quickened his pace, heart pounding, fingers tightening around his phone. The last text he sent read simply, "Heading out. Talk later." And then the signal dropped. The last known footage of Marcus Lee came from a security camera near the Congaree River Bridge at 12:43 a.m. His hood was up. He looked back once, then walked out of frame, into the storm that would never give him back. By sunrise, the storm had passed, leaving Columbia drowned in silence. Streets glistened with standing water, branches littered the sidewalks, and the air smelled of mud and electricity. On Green Street, a single sneaker lay near a storm drain. No one noticed it at first, not until the campus police arrived. When Evan woke that morning, Marcus's bed was still empty. The clock read 8:47 a.m. He must have crashed at someone's place, he told himself. But as the hours dragged on with no text, no call, and no sign of him, worry turned to dread. By afternoon, he called Rachel. "Have you heard from Marcus?" Rachel's voice sharpened. "Not since last night. Why?" "He never came back." A long pause. "That's not like him." By evening, the missing person report was filed. Flyers went up across campus. Marcus's photo, his smile bright, his eyes full of life. Last seen near Green Street, October 25, 2008. Students gathered near the horseshoe with flashlights, forming volunteer groups. Some searched along the Congaree River. Others combed through parking lots and wooded trails. The storm had washed away footprints, tire marks, any trace of where he might have gone. Reporters descended on the university by nightfall. Their microphones gleamed under streetlights as they repeated the same line. 18-year-old freshman Marcus Lee has been missing for 24 hours. Cameras caught Evan standing behind the crowd, pale and silent. Detective Carl Danner addressed the press. "We're treating this as a missing persons case." "There's no evidence of foul play at this time," Rachel whispered under her breath. "That's what they always say." She refused to sit still. Rachel retraced Marcus's steps, back to the fraternity house, through Green Street, and down toward the Riverwalk. At each stop she asked the same question. Did anyone see him leave? Most shrugged. Some avoided her gaze. One girl said she saw Marcus arguing with someone outside the party, but couldn't describe who. "It was dark," she said. "The storm was bad." The next day, search dogs were brought in. They followed a scent trail toward the bridge before losing it near the water's edge. Divers searched for 3 days straight. Nothing surfaced. Inside the dorm, Marcus's side of the room remained untouched, books stacked neatly, a half-empty coffee cup beside his laptop. Evan sat on the floor that night, scrolling through old texts. "You're gonna kill that midterm, bro. Meet you at the gym in 10. You good?" Simple messages that now felt like fragments of a life frozen in time. Rachel called him. "They're giving up," she said quietly. "They'll call it a cold case before the week's over." Evan's voice cracked. "He didn't just disappear." "I know," she said, "but we need something. Anything." The search continued for 6 days. Then 7. On the 8th day, the police packed up. The flyers stayed on bulletin boards, their corners curling in the wind. For most of Columbia, the storm was over. But for Rachel and Evan, it had just begun. By 2022, most people in Columbia had stopped talking about Marcus Lee. New classes had graduated, new buildings had risen, and the memory of that storm had faded into local legend. But for Rachel Myers, it never left. Every October, when the rain began to fall, she still thought about him, about that text he sent before vanishing, about the silence that followed. She was 32 now, living in Charleston, working as an investigative journalist. Her apartment overlooked the harbor, but her mind was always somewhere else, still chasing ghosts. Her desk was covered in old case files, newspaper clippings, and one photo. Marcus smiling on the horseshoe, sunlight spilling across his face. One night, she sat at her laptop, half listening to the rain against her window, when an email appeared in her inbox. No subject, no name, just one line in the message body. "You were right about Marcus. Check the river." Rachel froze. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. She read it again and again, the words sinking like stones. The sender's address was untraceable, a jumble of letters and numbers. Her heart began to race. After 14 years, someone was talking. The next morning, she drove to Columbia. The city looked both familiar and foreign. New shops stood where old diners had been, but the campus still carried the same southern quiet she remembered. She parked near Green Street, stepped out, and felt the same damp air that had once swallowed her friend. She met with Detective Evan Turner at the Columbia Police Department. He looked older, shorter hair, tired eyes, but the same quiet intensity. "You got my message," he said when she entered his office. "I thought you sent it," she replied. He frowned. "I didn't." Rachel slid her phone across his desk, showing the email. "Then who did?" Evan read it twice. "Could be a prank. Or someone who finally wants to tell the truth," she said. He leaned back, studying her. 14 years is a long time, Rachel. The case is cold. We've followed every lead." She met his eyes. "No, you didn't. You followed the ones they let you." Evan exhaled, silent for a moment. "You think someone on the inside covered it up?" "I think someone knows what happened, and they just reached out." They drove to the old bridge that crossed the Congaree River. The railings were rusted now, the paint peeling, but the sound of the water below hadn't changed. Rachel stood there for a long moment, watching the current move beneath her. She whispered, "This is where it ended." Evan's voice was low, "Or where it starts again." That night, Rachel checked into a small motel off Assembly Street. She pinned the email to the board she carried in her trunk, beside Marcus's photo. For the first time in years, the story didn't feel finished. The rain started again outside her window, steady and cold. Somewhere out there, someone knew the truth, and they had just opened the door. Rachel woke before dawn, restless, her mind turning over the same questions. Who had sent the email? Why now? She sat at the motel desk, staring at her old notes, names, times, fragments of interviews, every thread she'd once chased and lost. 14 years had dulled the details, but the ache of unfinished truth had never left her. She began her day at the university library, a place frozen in time. Students hurried past her, unaware that somewhere on this campus a ghost still lingered. She logged into an archive terminal, typing Marcus Lee Disappearance 2008. Dozens of articles appeared, headlines about the storm, the search, and the silence that followed. Each story sounded the same: official statements, polite sympathy, no answers. But buried near the bottom of one article was a quote she hadn't noticed before. Detective Danner. "There are inconsistencies, but nothing significant." Rachel leaned closer, frowning. Inconsistencies. She highlighted the line. Her next stop was Professor Carr's office, the same architecture professor Marcus had once admired. The woman looked older but sharp as ever. "Rachel Myers," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Haven't seen that name since the campus newspaper days." Rachel smiled faintly. "I'm revisiting an old story." Carr's face softened. "Marcus Lee. Did he ever mention trouble with anyone here? Or something that bothered him before he disappeared?" Carr hesitated. "He was gifted, focused. But toward the end I noticed he was distracted. He came by my office once, asked about dropping a class. Said he was dealing with pressure." "What kind of pressure?" Rachel asked. Carr sighed. He didn't say. Just that it wasn't about school. Outside, the autumn air felt heavier. Rachel scribbled in her notebook. Pressure, not academic. The word pulsed on the page. Later that afternoon, she met Evan at a diner near the police station. He slid into the booth, eyes tired. You really think this email means something? I think someone wants to be heard, Rachel said, and whoever it is, they know something the rest of us missed. Evan stirred his coffee. You ever think about moving on? She looked at him sharply. You did. I tried, he said quietly. But some things follow you. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the diner around them. Then Rachel leaned forward. Do you remember Detective Danner mentioning inconsistencies in his report? Evan's brow furrowed. Yeah, he said something about timelines not lining up, party witnesses changing their stories, but nothing came of it. Or someone made sure it didn't, Rachel said. That night she drove past Green Street. The houses looked different, some renovated, others abandoned. But the air still carried that same uneasy quiet. She stopped her car where the fraternity house used to be. Empty lot now, just grass and wind. Rachel whispered to herself, You're still here, aren't you, Marcus? Her phone buzzed, a blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, low and shaky. You don't know what you're getting into. Stop digging. Then the line went dead. The morning after the call, Rachel sat in her car overlooking the Congaree River. The sky was grey, and fog clung low over the water like a secret refusing to rise. Her phone vibrated. A message from Evan. Meet me at the bridge. You need to see this. When she arrived, the area was swarming with police. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind. Divers in black suits moved in and out of the murky water, while a crane idled nearby. Evan approached, his face pale. They found something, he said quietly. What is it? He looked toward the river. A car, submerged near one of the pylons. It matches the make and model of the one reported stolen in Ho 8, the same week Marcus disappeared. Rachel's pulse quickened. Who did it belong to? Evan hesitated. We don't know yet. Plates are unreadable. It's been down there a long time. They stood in silence as the crane began pulling the vehicle from the water. The sound of metal scraping against stone filled the air. Mud poured from the windows as the car broke the surface, water spilling out like the river itself was exhaling. The crowd of officers leaned in, waiting. Rachel watched every second, her breath caught in her chest. When the car finally rested on the embankment, one of the divers called out, We've got something inside. Moments later, the door was pried open. Inside was a skeleton half buried in sediment, fragments of a student ID still clinging to the jacket. Evan turned to Rachel, his expression hollow. It's him, he said. The world seemed to still. The sound of the river faded, replaced by the ringing in her ears. 14 years of questions, theories, and sleepless nights, ending with one silent truth pulled from the water. Rachel stepped closer, her eyes stinging. They said the current was too strong, that he was gone, she whispered. Evan nodded. Looks like he didn't go far. Later that afternoon, the scene was sealed off and word spread fast. News vans lined the bridge by sunset. Remains believed to be missing student Marcus Lee discovered in Congaree River. Cameras flashed and microphones crowded toward the officers giving statements. Rachel stayed at a distance, notebook in hand, recording every word. But something in her gut refused to rest. 14 years, she said softly to Evan. Why now? Why here? He looked over the bridge at the slow-moving water. Sometimes the river gives back what it wants to hide. Rachel frowned. No. Someone knew it was here. Someone wanted it found. Evan turned to her. You think that email led us to it? I don't think, she said. I know. The next day, forensic teams confirmed the ID belonged to Marcus Lee, but another discovery changed everything. A second set of fingerprints on the steering wheel, preserved by the cold silt of the river. The prints didn't belong to Marcus, and whoever they belonged to was still alive. 2 days after the river discovery, Columbia buzzed with speculation. News anchors replayed footage of the car being lifted from the water, while social media resurrected every rumor from 2008. For Marcus's family, it was grief renewed. For Rachel, it was unfinished business. She sat across from Evan in his office, stacks of reports spread between them. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. "You said the fingerprints didn't match Marcus," she said. "So who do they belong to?" Evan hesitated. "They came back with a hit this morning, Tyler Briggs." Rachel stared at him. "The fraternity guy?" "Yeah. His prints were in the system from a DUI back in 2010. They're a match." For a long moment, neither spoke. Rachel's pulse hammered in her ears. "So he was with Marcus that night?" Evan nodded slowly. "And if he was driving that car, we've got a lot of explaining to do." Within hours, Tyler Briggs was brought in for questioning. The arrest sent shockwaves through Columbia. Cameras crowded outside the station as reporters shouted questions. Rachel stood behind the police tape, watching as the man who once smirked his way through campus was led inside in handcuffs. Inside the interrogation room, Evan and another detective sat across from him. Tyler leaned back, still wearing that same self-assured grin. "I already told you I didn't kill anyone," he said. Evan folded his arms. "You were the last person seen with Marcus Lee. Your fingerprints are on the car that was pulled from the Congaree River. Do you expect us to believe that's coincidence?" Tyler's smirk faded slightly. "Look, I was at the party. He left angry. I followed him to make sure he was okay. The rain was bad. He slipped, fell. It was an accident." "An accident?" Evan repeated. "I panicked," Tyler continued. "He hit his head. I thought he was gone. I didn't know what to do. The guys helped me move the car. We just wanted it to go away." Rachel listened from behind the one-way glass, her stomach tightening. The words sounded rehearsed, hollow. Tyler wasn't mourning. He was managing. Evan pressed on. "You dumped the car with his body still inside?" Tyler swallowed hard. "We didn't mean for it to happen. You don't understand the pressure. My family, my father's on the board, alumni connections. If they found out, it would have ruined everything." "So you chose silence over truth," Evan said. Tyler looked up, defiant. "We all did what we had to do." When the recording ended, Rachel turned to Evan. "He's lying," she said. "There's more to this. He's protecting someone." Evan exhaled, rubbing his temples. "You think there were others involved?" "I know there were," Rachel said. "The question is, why protect them after 14 years? Outside, thunder rumbled faintly over Columbia, as if the storm that had started it all wasn't finished yet. Tyler's confession should have ended the story, but for Rachel it only deepened the mystery. Something about his version felt wrong, too convenient, too clean. If Marcus's death was an accident, why had so many people stayed silent for so long? The next morning, she sat across from Evan in the precinct's break room. His coffee had gone cold. "You saw it," she said. "He's holding back." Evan rubbed his eyes. "I know. But the DA's happy with the statement. They've got the fingerprints, the car, the body. It's enough for an indictment." Rachel leaned forward. "Enough to close the case, maybe. Not enough for the truth." She spent the next few days combing through old files, digging deeper into what had been buried in 2008. She found redacted police notes, gaps in interview logs, and missing witness statements. Someone had trimmed the case down to fit a story. When she confronted Detective Danner, now retired, he met her at a diner off I-26. The man looked worn, his hands trembling slightly as he lifted his coffee. "You still chasing that boy's ghost?" he asked. "I'm chasing whoever buried him," she replied. Danner sighed. "You think I didn't want answers? I was told to back off. Said it came from above." "Above?" Rachel asked. He nodded. "University pressure, alumni money. That fraternity had deep ties, judges, donors, politicians. Once Briggs's name came up, everything got quiet. They wanted it handled, not solved." Rachel's pulse quickened. "So you knew it wasn't just him?" "I knew enough to know the truth wouldn't see daylight," he said. "And now it's 14 years later. Be careful, Miss Myers. People like that don't like being reminded of what they covered up." Back at her motel, Rachel stared at her reflection in the dark window. The storm clouds outside mirrored the turmoil inside her. Marcus's story wasn't just about a disappearance anymore. It was about power, silence, and who got to decide what justice looked like. She opened her laptop and began typing her notes, linking names, dates, and financial donations from the Briggs family to the university. Each thread pointed to the same conclusion. Marcus's death wasn't hidden by accident. It was erased by design. That night, Evan called. His voice was low, uneasy. "Rachel, you need to stop digging." "Not you too," she said. "I'm serious. The department's getting pressure to keep things contained. People are calling my captain, people who shouldn't even know about the case." Rachel's voice hardened. "Then we're closer than I thought." There was silence on the line. Then Evan said, almost in a whisper, "You don't understand how deep this goes." "Then help me," she said. "Before they bury it again." When the call ended, Rachel sat in the quiet, the hum of the motel air conditioner filling the room. Outside, rain began to fall again, steady and relentless. She whispered to herself, "If they want to hide the truth, they'll have to go through me first." 3 days after her meeting with Dana, Rachel received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was hesitant, gravelly with age. "You're looking into Marcus Lee," the man said. "I saw something that night." Rachel's breath caught. "Who is this?" "My name's Henry Collins. I worked campus maintenance back then. I was near Green Street when the storm hit." "Why didn't you ever come forward?" she asked. "I tried," he said. No one wanted to listen. They met later that afternoon at a small diner off Garner's Ferry Road. Henry looked worn, his hands rough, his eyes clouded with regret. He stirred his coffee for a long time before speaking. "That night, I was locking up one of the maintenance sheds near the frat houses. The rain was coming down hard. I saw 2 figures arguing outside. One of them was Marcus." Rachel leaned in. "And the other?" Henry hesitated. "Looked like that Briggs boy, but there was someone else too, standing by the car." "Someone else?" Rachel repeated. He nodded. "Couldn't see his face. Bigger guy, white hoodie. When Marcus turned to walk away, the other one grabbed him. They struggled. Then Marcus broke free and ran toward the street." The car followed. Rachel's stomach twisted. "You're saying someone chased him?" Henry looked down. "I went to the police the next morning, told an officer what I saw. He took my statement, but it never made the report. 2 weeks later, I was let go from my job. Said the department was cutting costs." "Do you remember the officer's name?" Henry frowned, trying to recall. "Dana." That was it. Rachel's mind raced. Dana, the same detective who'd told her he was ordered to stop investigating. He hadn't ignored the truth. Someone had forced his hand. She pulled out her recorder. "Henry, I need you to repeat that on record." He shook his head. "No, I've said enough. I don't want trouble." "Please," she urged. This could finally clear Marcus's name. Henry looked up at her, eyes tired but steady. "Clearing his name won't bring him back. But if you're going to do this, be careful. They don't forgive people who talk." After he left, Rachel sat motionless in the booth, the weight of his words pressing down. 2 men, 1 car, 1 cover-up. She called Evan as the sun dipped low behind the diner. "There was another person there that night," she said. He sounded exhausted. "Rachel, we've already got Briggs. Don't start chasing ghosts again." "These aren't ghosts. They're witnesses." "Or lies," he said quietly. "Then help me prove which." The call ended with silence, and Rachel knew she'd lost him, at least for now. Outside, the rain had started again, steady and cold, tapping against the windshield like a reminder. Marcus hadn't run from that storm alone. Someone had followed him into it. Rachel couldn't sleep that night. Henry's words kept replaying in her mind. The second man, the car, the cover-up. She opened her laptop and pulled up every archived image from that weekend in 2008. Fraternity photos, social posts, student records. One picture caught her eye, a group shot from the homecoming tailgate. In the background, just over Tyler Briggs's shoulder, stood someone in a white hoodie. She zoomed in. The face was blurry but familiar. The next morning, she drove straight to Evan's house. He answered the door in sweatpants, surprise written across his face. "Rachel, it's 6 in the morning. "I found something," she said, pushing past him into the kitchen. "The second man Henry mentioned. I think it was you." Evan froze. "What?" "Look at this." She turned the laptop toward him. "White hoodie. You were at the party, weren't you?" He stared at the screen for a long time. "Yeah," he finally said. "I was there, but I didn't want you to know." Rachel's voice tightened. "Why?" "Because I followed Marcus that night," Evan said quietly. He was upset. Tyler was pushing him, saying things that crossed a line. I tried to calm him down, but when he left I followed, just to make sure he got back safe. Then Tyler showed up yelling. It got out of hand. Rachel's heart pounded. "You saw what happened?" Evan nodded, eyes glassy. "They argued near the bridge. Marcus tried to walk away, but Tyler shoved him. He stumbled back, hit the railing. The rain made everything slick. He fell, just slipped and fell. I tried to grab him, but it was too fast." Rachel whispered, "You could have told someone." "I wanted to," he said. But the police came, and Tyler's father was already there. He pulled me aside, said if I talked, my scholarship would disappear. My career would be over. I was 18, Rachel. I panicked. She felt anger and sorrow twist together. "So you let them bury it?" Evan's voice broke. "I've lived with that every day since. I became a cop to make it right somehow. But when you came back, I knew it would all come out." Rachel took a step back, her mind spinning. "Henry saw you, that's why his statement disappeared." He nodded slowly. "Dana was told to destroy it. Orders from above." Silence filled the kitchen. The only sound was the rain tapping against the window. Steady, relentless. Rachel looked at him, tears welling. "You could have stopped this." "I know," he said. "And if I could trade places with him, I would." She closed her laptop. "Then help me finish what he started. No more lies." Evan nodded, the weight of 14 years pressing down on both of them. "Whatever it takes," he said. As Rachel walked toward the door, she looked back once. "You said the storm took Marcus," she whispered. But it looks like it never stopped. The confession came 2 weeks later. Tyler Briggs sat in a small courtroom, his once proud posture replaced by a slouched, tired stillness. The air buzzed with whispers. Students, alumni, reporters, all drawn to the case that had haunted Columbia for more than a decade. Rachel sat in the back, notebook in hand, heart steady. She wasn't there for spectacle. She was there for truth. Tyler's lawyer motioned for silence before the judge. "My client wishes to make a full statement," he said. Tyler glanced at the floor, then at Rachel. For the first time, there was no arrogance in his eyes, just exhaustion. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he began. "Marcus and I argued, words were said, things got heated. But I didn't kill him." Evan, seated near the front, looked down, jaw tight. Tyler continued. "When he fell, I panicked. Evan tried to pull him up, but the current was too strong. We thought he was gone. I wanted to call the police, but my father, he said it would destroy everything. The fraternity, the school, our family name. He told me to say nothing." His voice trembled. "So we pushed the car into the river. We buried him there. For years I tried to forget, but forgetting doesn't work. Every time it rains, I hear it again. The splash, the silence after." A hush fell over the room. Rachel felt a cold chill creep up her spine. The truth, long buried under years of fear and privilege, had finally surfaced. When the judge ordered the arrest, Tyler didn't resist. The cuffs clicked around his wrists with finality. Cameras flashed, capturing the fall of a man who'd once been untouchable. Outside the courthouse, the storm clouds gathered once more, low and heavy over Columbia. Reporters crowded around Rachel, shoving microphones toward her. "Miss Myers, do you believe justice has been served?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Justice isn't a headline," she said. "It's truth, and truth doesn't vanish even when people try to hide it." Later that evening, Rachel met Evan at the bridge, the same spot where Marcus had vanished. The wind carried the faint smell of rain. Evan's expression was heavy but calmer now. "It's done," he said quietly. Rachel looked at the river below. "No," she replied. "It's finally beginning." He nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about that night. If I'd done one thing differently—" "You can't rewrite it," she said softly. "You can only face it." They stood in silence for a long time. The river moved steadily beneath them, carrying years of guilt and secrets downstream. Rachel took one last look at the water. "He deserved better," she whispered. Evan nodded. He finally got it. As they walked away, the first drops of rain began to fall. Gentle at first, then heavier. Columbia was quiet again, but not the same. The storm that had once taken Marcus Lee had finally returned him to the world. 2 months after Tyler Briggs's conviction, Columbia began to quiet again. The news crews left, the cameras disappeared, and the river returned to its slow, steady rhythm. Yet for those who had carried Marcus's story all these years, the silence felt different, lighter, but still heavy with memory. Rachel stood beneath the oak trees at the horseshoe, watching a small group gather near the memorial stone newly placed by the university, in memory of Marcus Lee, 1990-2008. Forever part of us. Students she didn't know laid flowers beside it. The wind moved softly through the branches, scattering leaves like whispers. Evan approached from behind. He looked older, more tired, but there was something different in his eyes. Acceptance, maybe. "I almost didn't come," he said. Rachel glanced at him. "You should be here." "I don't think I deserve to be," he said quietly. She folded her arms. "Marcus wouldn't have wanted you to disappear with the guilt. He'd want you to keep going." He nodded, staring at the stone. "Funny thing," he said. "I joined the force to make up for what I didn't do that night. Turns out the only way to fix it was to face it." Rachel smiled faintly. "You did." For a long moment they stood in silence, the sound of the river faint in the distance. Then Evan said, "You ever think about writing it? All of it?" Rachel's gaze lingered on the memorial. "I already did," she said. "It's going live tomorrow. The full story, what really happened, what was hidden, and why it matters." Evan looked at her surprised. "You think people will care?" "I think people need to," she replied, "because the truth only matters when someone's willing to tell it." That evening, back in Charleston, Rachel sat at her desk, her article open on the screen. The title read, "The Storm That Never Ended, The Marcus Lee Case 14 Years Later." She scrolled through the lines one last time, then clicked publish. Within hours it spread, shared by students, journalists, and strangers who'd never heard of Marcus before, but felt his story echo something deeper. A community once silenced by fear found its voice again. The next morning, the university announced a scholarship in Marcus's name, dedicated to first-generation students pursuing architecture, the dream he never got to finish. Rachel read the announcement and felt a quiet peace settle over her. Later, she walked along the Charleston waterfront. The air smelled of salt and rain, and clouds gathered on the horizon, gray and soft. She thought of Marcus, not the boy who vanished, but the one who arrived in Columbia full of hope, chasing something bright. She whispered, "You're home now." As the rain began to fall, she turned to leave, her reflection rippling across the wet pavement. Before the story fades, remember this: storms pass, but truth endures. And somewhere, in every city, there's another story waiting to be told. If this one moved you, subscribe, because every mystery deserves to be found, and every voice deserves to be heard.